Welcome to Randolph and Martin's Friday Night Talk Show. We've got two quite regular guys on the show. Andy, a Villa fan from Birmingham. How you doing, Andy? You right?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Steve. All good.
Good. And we've got Ryan, who's an old friend of mine from down South Wales. He's a Man City fan for his sins. How you doing, Ryan?
Very good, thank you. Thanks for having me on again.
No probs. Obviously, we've got Martin on. Martin's been doing the show with me now for a couple of months. So I don't think he was on the last time you guys were on. So
was my first show actually.
Oh, you were on?
I think
first show.
First one, yeah.
So obviously a lot has happened in the last couple of months with the Premier League. First of all, though, if we'll have a bit of a discussion first about the Super League and your take on it. I've got my take on it, but I'll go after. So if we'll start with you, Mart. What's your obviously as an Arsenal fan, I suppose your first reaction was surprise at being involved.
Yeah.
I suppose as one of the big six. But what was your reaction to the initially hearing about it?
That was probably my initial reaction. Really, are we still considered a big six club anymore? Because I mean, I think we finished sixth last year, just about, and I mean, getting our arse slapped this year. You know, I was thinking, you know, if it's or anyway getting into Europe, fair enough. I can see I've signed up for it, but personally, I think it's a bit of a disgrace to the competitive spirit of the game, like a lot of the pundits and the fans were alluring to. You know, Arsenal started up as it was a factory team for a munitions factory down in Woolwich. Started up as a team for some of the lads who worked there to play on a Saturday. And then, you know, it grew from there. We became known as the Bank of England Club, which is quite ironic that we did this for money. And it did just seem, I'm sure we'll touch on all this later, but I did not realise. I mean, I knew some of like the bigger clubs were in debt, but I didn't realise some of the staggering amounts of debt these sides are in. Looking at it, good chance for me to have a little kick at Spurs, but I think they paid 1.2 billion for their stadium there or thereabouts. I didn't look too deep into this, but I think they've got a debt of about 1.7 billion overall. So how can these teams be running up this amount of negative equity? And you think like Wigan, Macclesfield recently, Bury, they've all been at the administration. I don't think Wigan, they got saved last minute, but a lot of these sides have gone to the wall recently. But it seems as if these other teams are too big to fail because they've got wealthy backers and that. So, yeah, I just thought it was really against the competitive spirit of football, because that's one of the joys of the game, really, isn't it? You know, you third round of the FA Cup and Minnow draws a big team and they can beat them on the day if everything goes right for them. That's one of the things that drew me to the game early on.
But they would have still been in that. They'd have still been in the FA Cup. Yeah. They'd have still been in the Premier League. They just wouldn't have been in the Champions League. So...
Yeah, that's you know, you think of Leicester, for example, though, they were the year before they won the title, they were fighting relegation. I think Ranieri took over late in the year and kept them up, and then they just sort of kept that form going throughout the season. I don't think anyone really expected them to win the title that year, and I think in the Champions League they got to like the quarterfinals, was it? I think they had a good result against Monaco, or unless they knocked them out, I can't quite remember. Not Leicester fan, of course, but sort of that as well. You know, you do get the odd sort of smaller minnow team breaking into Europe. I think Swansea did when they were, I know it was UEFA Cup or Europa League, but they won the League Cup, that qualified them. Yeah, I just think it is creating an elite circle for the bigger teams to have sort of the bigger games on a midweek and just sort of just monopolising it and keeping all the money in one corner where, you know, if there's an opportunity to spread it out, especially with how things have been going recently and the amount of losses every club's taken, they should be looking to distribute the wealth a bit more, I think, which is a very soy boy socialist view. You can tell I went to bloody Leeds, didn't you?
Ryan?
Oh, we're at the beginning of a whirlwind 48 hours that, well, I'm sure there'll be films or documentaries and things going forward that'll be produced looking at the roller coaster of emotions. I think, well, not far off the whole world got involved in. I mean, James Corden, you know, he's got an American show. I think the audience didn't have a clue what he was talking about, but it even got to that level of debate, discussion, pleading for people to see sense. Obviously disappointed in the owners at Man City. I can only, you know, sort of speak from Man City perspective. For me, they haven't put a foot wrong since they bought the club. I think it was mentioned about over a decade, ago, bought the club. They haven't put a foot wrong. They've always done things professionally, but putting the fans first. They've done loads for the community. They're a global presence now with the City Football Group of all the different clubs. It's been a dream, right? Make no bones about it. Yes, we've had budgets, transfer budgets. They've transformed us to be, on a global scale. That we're even considered for this is mad, considering where the club have been. So disappointment. I'm so pleased, and well, it seems they broke the Chelsea were one of the first to sort of crack and said they were going for paperwork to come out. Officially, apparently, City were the first team to say, no, we're done, and they released that statement, which was I was pleased at that. They said, well, you know what, we don't need this. I think, Matt, you just mentioned the debt. It's yes, City aren't above zero yet, but it's millions rather than billions. And it's quite in comparison, a low, it's still, I think it's about 100 million, I think City are at in debt. However, the money that's spent, 100 million, is pretty much one player these days. So we didn't need it. We weren't in it for the money. And you think of, like you mentioned, those minnows, the FA Cup, the magic of the FA Cup and things like that. That would have been gone, because City, there's no way, if you play in Real Madrid every other week and, the big names, it would become pretty much a B team. What people look at the Carabao Cup now, you put your squad rotation in. The FA Cup would have become that. Even the Premier League would have become that, because there wasn't that emphasis on perhaps getting in the top four.
Andy?
Yeah, I mean, all I can do is sort of echo what the lads have said and what everyone else has said, really. I mean, I've been watching football on a regular basis now for 45 years. And, there've been lots of, obviously, sort of, when the Premier League started, there was a lot of sort of people nervous about that. When the Champions League took over from the European Cup, there were other incidents. There was talk around the 39th game. There was, Man United pulling out the FA Cup to go and play in some tournament somewhere else, But this is by far and far away the most shameful episode in football in my lifetime. Absolutely shameful. And the self-interest that was shown by the owners of these clubs, and obviously we are just talking about the owners, we're not talking about the fans or the players or the manager, probably not even the chief executives in some cases, because it seems that this was just something that was sort of just sort of discussed almost in a call like this between the teams involved in the three countries by the owners of the teams involved, and it's just total self-interest. I mean, the idea, as people have said, that there'd be no jeopardy, that they were guaranteed to stay in this league, and as people have said, it would just become a sort of series of, towards the end of the season, anybody in the bottom half of that table, it would just become a series of exhibition matches, presumably played in places like Singapore and Beijing and New York, and basically sort of bugger the rest, sort of thing. I mean, there was no thought given to what would happen to the league that would be left behind, and as Ryan says, quite clearly they would just use that to sort of to fill the B team or something else. But I think the thing that's most shocking for me, in a way, is just the sort of almost like the naivety of those owners. And it shows how distant they are actually from the clubs that they own and the supporters of those clubs and the culture of football. The naivety that they thought they could get away with this, that they could just sort of present it as a sort of fait accompli, and that people might grumble a bit, but they'd sort of get away with it, And I think it's actually shocked them, really, that not just the sort of the amount of opposition, but the breadth of opposition to this, even from a sort of conservative government, which, generally takes a sort of, let business do what it wants sort of approach. I think, the breadth of opposition from politicians, from former players, from present players, from managers, I think that it just piled on, and it became obvious even before sort of Chelsea and Man City bailed that they weren't going to be able to get away with it. And I just think it's sort of, and even when you've got somebody like Joel Glazer, who hasn't spoken publicly about football for about 15 years, now coming out and sort of eating humble pie, it just shows really just, that how naive they were in thinking that they could do this. And I think what it's done now, obviously that immediate threat has gone away, but what you've got now is a real issue of trust between not just the other clubs and those six, or the ownership of those six, but also from the fans of those clubs to their own owners, and so it would be nice to think that we could consider introducing some sort of legislation. I think it's unlikely we'll ever go down the German route of having, sort of club and fan majority ownership and businesses only able to buy 49% of a club. It would be nice to do that, but I don't think we're ever going to do it. But it'd be nice to think that we get some sort of ombudsman or independent regulator who could stop this sort of thing ever happening again. But in the meantime, I think they should be punished. I think I'm never in favour of points deductions, because I think with points deductions you're punishing the players, you're punishing the manager, and most importantly of all, you're punishing the fans. I've never been in favour of that, but I mean, I could see a situation where each of those clubs should have to pay like £1 million to local non-league division, to non-league clubs, to local division, because I think Martin's point is the key one, really. You've got Macclesfield and Bury going out of business. Bury's only a few miles from the centre of Manchester, and these clubs, it's so greedy. And JP Morgan says, we're going to put up 5 billion, and they'll walk away from hundreds of years of tradition. They do need to be punished for it. And if that punishment, doesn't go into the coffers of the Premier League or UEFA or the FA, but goes into helping support local non-league clubs in the northwest and London, I think that would be one thing to come out of what is a pretty horrendous situation.
Yeah, I read up about it, and it's like 15 founder members, €3.5 billion between them. I heard it was each, first of all, but that's just too much. It was between them, 290 million for participating each year. So on a play-in perspective, the Premier League, then the gulf between those six, there's not that much of a gulf at the moment, because you have got teams like Everton, West Ham, Villa, Leeds, plenty of teams there competing. Obviously, City are up by 8-10 points, not including tonight's game. But I think the gulf would have increased if teams are getting that much more money. For me, playing devil's advocate as a businessman, you look at those teams and you've got the Glaziers are worth 4 billion, Sheikh Mansour 5, John Henry from Liverpool 5, Abramovich 11, $11 billion. Levy and Lewis from Spurs 4 billion, and Kroenke from Arsenal 8 billion. So you're talking 40-50 billion between them, and it's their money. They're playing Football Manager, really, aren't they? They're playing real life Football Manager. When it comes to the number crunching, take Chelsea out of the equation because that's a different situation. But with all the other ones, they're putting money into the club. They're not doing it for a footballing perspective. They're not doing it for a fan's perspective. They're doing it for a tax perspective. If you're offsetting, if you've got Kroenke who's 8 billion and these other Americans who've got interests in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and FSG with teams out in America, you buy, a football club, but they don't own the stadium. They own, the brand of Liverpool and the brand of Arsenal. And it's worth money, but they're just offsetting, tax money that they would have been paying elsewhere in other countries. So for them to look at this and think, couple of billion quid, fantastic, 300 million, so in effect, every year, if they're getting 300 million for playing in there, they're never going to have to jump into their pocket at all in the transfer market. 290 million quid a year on players. So the gulf from those six would have just been massive compared to the others. The home and away games against, Wednesday night in Stoke's okay. Wednesday night in Madrid, Atletico Madrid, or, wherever at Barcelona, how many fans are going to be traveling away every other weekend? Okay, at the moment it's coronavirus, but so they're not doing it for the fans. Players traveling on a Wednesday for an FA Cup game, or at the time we've got at the moment now where they've got Champions League quarterfinals. That's bad enough. But when they're going to have to do it every week, or every other week away and every other week home, and every game, you can't put second team players out, as one of you mentioned just now. You're going to be playing second team players in the Premier League. it's okay for City because they've got 2 full sides. Every other team, including United, Chelsea, Tottenham, Tottenham, even and Liverpool, they're struggling this year with their first team playing in 5th or 6th. So it's a business decision above everything else. They haven't taken anybody into consideration. And what you said, Andy, they've definitely they haven't gauged the general public, and it's not just the UK. It's happened in Madrid as well. All the newspapers in Spain and Juventus, I've said, and they've all pulled out. So it's come to nothing. But the greed for me is unbelievable. I think it's a slightly different situation. I think if you were Abramovich and you've loaned Chelsea £1 billion, then you'd be rubbing your hands thinking, I can get all that money back now and still have a football club owing me £1 billion at some point in the future. So I can see where they're coming from. If they'd done it in a different way, if they'd been out in the open and said, look, we're going to rejig the Champions League, and because for me it's a good concept. Maybe not on the monetary side of things, but as far as the league is concerned, which this has been mooted for years. Champions League is kind of a hosh posh of the UEFA, the European, bringing things together. It's not really a Champions League because you've got teams that are 3rd and 4th in there, which champions means champions. Why are Man United going to be in there next year when they're 2nd? They're not the champions. So they could have tweaked things around, but not come to having, as you said, James Corden, Boris Johnson, everybody talking about it. People that know nothing about football. But it's the fans and the clubs and the lower clubs. There's so many people that it's so many layers that this would have affected, and so it's just lucky, that it hasn't come off.
I think so. I mean, I agree with a lot of what you said, but I think I just following up on a couple of things there. I mean, I think firstly, I mean, I think just to reiterate, this isn't over. I mean, that sort of toxic atmosphere that's been created isn't going to go away.
No,
and you sort of hope. I mean, in a way, it's good that it's happened. Perhaps when there's no fans in the grounds, because you could see that turning nasty between, I mean, it's not the fault of the fans of any of these clubs, but in the white hot atmosphere of a sort of Leeds Man United game or whatever, you could see that sort of turning a bit nasty, as in the past it did in things like the miners' strike, when Leeds and Forest fans are sort of arguing with each other about where the positions that their different areas took during the miners' strike. So it is a sort of toxic situation, and it needs to be sorted out. A couple of things. I thought I thought it was very disingenuous of the I think it was the Real Madrid owner who was talking about how badly off they are and in debt and everything. I mean, anybody who knows anything about football knows that the Spanish clubs exist and have existed for decades on large amounts of debt. That's the way they run their clubs. They have a presidential model. People vote for a president. Every president who gets elected does so on the back of promises to bring in new, Galacticos and all the rest of it. And everybody knows that there isn't a bank in Spain that is going to call in the debt on Barcelona and Real Madrid, because they'd lose half their customers overnight. The Glazers are coming to Manchester United, and again, they're existing on a debt model. That's what they're doing. They've got some, whatever it is, £100 million worth of debt. But that's the model that they've structured it on. They're listed on the New York Stock Exchange. That's the way they want it. They've got $250 million worth of extra shares on the stock exchange the day this was announced. So I just think that they are business people. You're quite right. But if you're a good business person, you should understand the model of the business you're buying into. And although they've got this situation in America whereby they don't really exist their sports with sort of away fans, the distances between the cities. I mean, American football, it tends to just exist with a very large season ticket style home crowd. So I don't think they understand that concept at all. The idea of going to Stoke on a Wednesday night, they just wouldn't get that. They'd get the idea of somebody in Beijing or Singapore watching that game in Stoke on a Wednesday night. And I just think they've totally misunderstood the sort of business and the culture that they've bought into, and I think that doesn't really say an awful lot about them and the people who are advising them. Somebody must at some point have said to whoever, Glazer or John Henry, and said, look, this is a good idea. There'll be a certain amount of opposition to it, but once it's up and running, and we've got all this money from JP Morgan, we're all in clover. And I think they were really badly advised on this stuff, and it just doesn't suggest to me that they're going to anytime soon suddenly start understanding what football is all about. So, but as business people, it's always within their gift to say, look, okay, we've made a bad investment here, let's get out of it.
Yeah,
it seems that there's almost a rebellious vibe coming through with these owners, and they're the only ones who are benefited. Don't get me wrong. Like you say, the managers, the players. There's nobody internally in the UK even at most of these clubs who are on board with this idea. But it's as if the investors have gone, do you know what? UEFA are screwing us big time out of a ton of cash, and they're puppeteers at the moment. And until the reform happens of the Champions League, if that's what is needed, I don't know. I know people are saying it doesn't work, and like Steve, you just said about United qualifying, could there just be a Champions League and then a tier then for second, third, and fourth, or something like? I don't know what the answer is there. However, for me, it's a case of better the devil you know, and let UEFA do. There's always going to be corruption in there, and there's people getting arrested every other freaking month. For wide scale scandals and bungs under the table job, and you go back in Qatar and all that sort of conversation. There's always going to be that, and I just suspect that Pep made a comment, basically pleading for the chairman of the Super League. Can you come out and explain why you've done this? And I just got a vibe of he knew something, why the reasonings behind it. Because don't get me wrong, UEFA are, I'm not the innocent party in this. I think I agree with Andy. It's not going away. I don't think they'll just go, oh yeah, do you know what? We messed up. We're sorry, and everyone hate them, and they'll be happy. I don't doubt they'll come back with another idea, or at least there'll be a discussion point with UEFA to say, well, look, we're really still not happy. Especially if they don't get heavily fined. And you mentioned £1 million for communities. I think that's, and I'm speaking as a City fan, I think take them to the cleaners as financial sort of, give it to the grassroots. That'll really sort of transform the game if that's what they were doing it for.
Yeah. You think also, Ryan, you think, I know they were trying to keep this very tight and between themselves, but, you do have to sort of take advice on these things. You would have thought that they would have gone to speak, almost on a sort of off the record basis, if you like, to a Guardiola or to a Klopp, and to say to them, how do you think this is going to go down? Do you think that, do you think the fact that they haven't done that is quite shocking, really?
And I don't doubt there's something. I know they're saying it's Mourinho for performances, but there's a hell of a coincidence that Monday morning he's gone in. There's been a blowout, I'm sure of it, and it'll come out one day. And Mourinho probably went in, fell out with Levy, saying, well, why didn't you inform me of this? No communication. It's blown up. The two egos there. And, so, there's been a fallout. And I was worried because the way Pep spoke, the way Klopp spoke, clubs could have lost their managers. I mean, Milner came out and spoke, and I thought that was brave. But I suppose he's at the end of his career, the right end of the career, to come out and be, controversial maybe. Because what's the worst, if they said, right, you finished at Liverpool, it'd be a big loss to Liverpool. He's a good player, don't get me wrong. But, you're not going to have a younger player at Liverpool. You're not going to have Trent coming out and saying, I'm against this. I don't agree with it. So it was a brave move, but things really could have been shaken up. And it was like a blinking soap opera, how it all panned out. The Gary Neville Carragher episode on Monday Night Football, I couldn't take my eyes off it. It was, so dramatic. And you're thinking, this is real life. It's not a movie. It's not a scripted thing. It really, the passion and everything coming through is just, it's incredible. And like I said,
it was so
there'll be a Netflix.
It was so clumsily done. So it made me laugh. Somebody put on Twitter today, they said, it's as if Alan Sugar had given the apprentices a task to create a new football league. It was good, it was that clumsy. It was that, it was that sort of badly conceived, and just ill thought out, and I really think that they have been absolutely, flabbergasted by the amount of pressure when they would have seen those scenes, in their American homes or wherever they were, the Bahamas, and they've seen those scenes outside Stamford Bridge with the coaches being stopped coming in. It would have got a lot worse than that, I mean, that was just a sort of spontaneous reaction, once people had got organised, it would have been a hell of a lot worse than that.
Yeah, I think they announced it on a Sunday night. Try to kind of brush it under the carpet, and they've just totally misread the situation. I agree with you on what you said. I don't understand how they've, in any business, you do your due diligence, you get advice, and especially if you're, I think all of them, apart from the Spurs owners, they're all foreigners. So and they come across to the country from whichever country they're from, America, Dubai, and they can see, and it's not like they've never been here before. They've only come once or twice. Abramovich is a regular. He lives in Knightsbridge. Yeah. So I can't, and he sat round the Zoom meeting and hasn't spoken up. Obviously, you've got the Bayern and Dortmund, obviously fan based. They've said no straight away. PSG, very rich owners, they've said no. So, and it speaks.
You wouldn't even, Steve. You wouldn't even. I mean, you couldn't, unless they'd attracted other teams in. And if you've got nobody from France and nobody from Germany, you can't call it a European league anyway, can you? I mean, with 3 countries. I mean, you'd be going down to the next level, to the sort of Ajaxes and sort of Benficas and who aren't on the same level at all in terms of finance. And okay, this would have evened it up a bit, but I can't imagine that the Dutch teams would have gone for it.
But it does go to show how obviously everybody says the Premier League it's the best league in Europe, but now it goes to show that the owners that are here are the greediest owners. All the money's in the Premiership. It's come from Sky, and they're chasing the money. What Ryan said just now about the Champions League, you can't have just the champions, because you're going to have you're going to have Spain, Italy, Germany, and the UK. Then you're going to have the Turkish champion. You're going to have the Maltese. There's not enough. You're going to have the same winners every year of one of probably 4 countries. So if you've got a 16-team league, the other 12 are going to be. What you'll end up doing is you'd have City's team playing in the Champions League, their second side, against 12 of the sides, and it wouldn't attract the money, the sponsorship. So you've got to have second and third teams in, but you can't call it the Champions League. You've got to rebrand it. You've got to change it somehow, back to a European Cup for the champions, and then the second, so if it's City would play in the European Cup next year, United would play in the whatever they want to call it, the team that came in second, the winners of the FA Cup playing the Cup Winners' Cup. Take it back to what it was years ago. The UEFA Cup was played for the team that was in 4th. Villa won, the UEFA Cup with like Dennis.
European Cup.
Yeah, they won the UEFA as well, didn't they?
No, just European.
Was that when Dennis Mortimer and Gary Shaw and them? Yeah,
they beat Munich in the final. Yeah. So. They've got to do something. It's a pivotal moment here that something's going to change. It must be for the better, because they know now that they can't do any worse than what they've done. But what's interesting, Steve, is that you talk about I'm an older, what do they call them now? Legacy fans. They're describing them as, aren't they? I'm a legacy fan, and I remember the European Cup and the Cup Winners' Cup and the UEFA Cup. But if you remember what happened, it was in the late 80s, and Barcelona got knocked out of the European Cup at an early round in a sort of shock result. And that was the point where all of the sort of powers in football sat down and said, look, we can't afford the jeopardy, to use a word that's in vogue at the moment. We can't afford the jeopardy of one of these big clubs that everyone wants to watch on TV going at an early stage. So we need to create a group system where over a series of games, you're most likely to get the big teams come through. And that's how the Champions League was founded. And what's sort of gone under the radar a little bit in all this stuff with the Super League is what's happening now with the Champions League, with UEFA, and that they're trying to create these the wild card places for teams that have won the European Cup or the Champions League a lot in the past to get automatic entry, and this looks like it's going to go through. So that would mean that, say, Chelsea or Liverpool this season, if they don't finish in the European places, would automatically get entry to next season's Champions League because of how many times they've won it in the past. So, you know, again, that's another protection that they want to put in for one of the big clubs having a bad season. But, you know, I'm not a Luddite. I'm not arguing for no change. I was looking today, you know, when the Premier League was set up. If you remember when the Premier League was set up in the early 90s, it was basically because all the best players in the world were going to Italy, because Italy had got the most money, got the structure. You remember those fabulous sort of late 80s, early 90s sides for AC Milan and Inter Milan, and, you know, the sort of Channel 4 program. The Premier League turned that around. They put all that sort of money into it, all the TV money into it, and suddenly all the best players were coming to this country. But the difference was, it wasn't a closed shop. There was relegation and promotion. And I was just looking today at the first season of the Premier League, 92-93, which Man United won and Villa came second. QPR came fifth, Blackburn came fourth, and also in that league, Coventry, Wimbledon, Oldham, Ipswich, Nottingham Forest. And what's happened to those clubs since? Liverpool and Chelsea were well down, and Wolves, West Ham and Leicester weren't even in the league. So what's happened over those periods, you know, you're talking about 20 years, more than that, isn't it? Or 30 years. There's been ups and downs. You know, the clubs that have come into the Premier League, like Bradford, Hull City, Barnsley, they've all had a little spell and they've gone out again. You know, and I think that's what people like. You've still got most of the big teams at the top, as they were then, but there's that sort of fluctuation. And I think that really is at the heart of the opposition against what they were trying to do. I think if they'd sort of suggested a league where you could sort of, you know, get into it through your accomplishments in your domestic league, I don't think there would have been as much opposition. There would have still been opposition against aspects of it. And there's certainly, you know, but if they said those clubs who are the founder members could be relegated, I think that would have taken away one of the main planks of criticism.
Yeah, it's that rich boys club was the smack in the face. And what you just mentioned, and the two that came to mind, obviously City came to mind. You know, we were in Division 2 back in 1999. It's not that long ago. Leicester in 2008, I believe, I think it was either Division 1 or Division 2, they won. And I mean, almost, was it just 10 or 11 years later, they win in the Premier League. Yeah. So, and that's why people love football. You know, it's that the highs and lows of promotion, relegation, cup wins, cup runs, you know, City going away and playing Chesterfield and being, we've spoken about this before, I apologize, I always forget the club we played, where we're going into the last 20 minutes of the game and we're losing and we're going out against, you know, a club that's got 500 fans there. You know, that's the magic of football. And it's the Americans and the...
It's Villa being 1-0 up against Man City after 20 minutes, right, isn't it?
I think it's Villa being 1-0 up after 1 minute.
It's holding on for the next 19 that's more impressive, Steve.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that's probably the biggest issue would have been the gulf would have just got bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
You know, Leicester, you say, winning the league, third in the league at the moment. You know, you win the league, you expect to push on, but you win the league and you think, right, okay, right, now's the time. The owner's there, and they sell their best players. You know, Mahrez went for X amount of million. You know, Morgan retired. Vardy was the only one really who, you know, stuck to his guns. Didn't go to Arsenal because I think Arsenal were in for him, but he wanted to obviously stay at the bigger club. Oh, by the way, he's an Arsenal fan. That's why I'm. And you know, who's Kante obviously went to Chelsea. You know, for the extra money.
Quarter.
Yeah, yeah. Also went to warm Chelsea's bench for 3 seasons.
But in the reserves.
You know, so they all went, and I think the major problem would be if all that massive amount of money is going to be pumped into those top 6, then those top 6 would be, you know, 1 to 6 every year. Nobody would get near them. For me, that was the major issue. But
I think Steve, though, apart from, I would just say that apart from, you know, finding a suitable punishment for these owners, and I would say owners, not the clubs. You know, I don't want the clubs to be punished, but the owners. And I think, you know, apart from that, what people have got to, I think, what everybody's got to decide. Obviously, the government's jumping up and down. It sees this as a sort of popular vote winner and all the rest of it. Everyone's jumping up and down. But what the clubs have got to they've got to sort of make their minds up on is how important are the fans who actually go to the matches. Because, at the moment, it's the third largest revenue stream for big clubs after sponsorship and TV rights. It's well down in third place. But they've got to actually say to themselves, how important is this? Obviously we've had this period now where there've been no fans in the ground, but football is still going 1-1. Well, we have that for a bit. But and I think they've got to sort of say to themselves, how important is this? I mean, do we actually sort of, as the sort of Germans have, but perhaps not going as far as that because we won't. How important is it that these people in the ground, that their voice is heard? And I think that's what's come out over the last 48 hours is that fans won't just sort of sit by and let their clubs be sort of, hijacked, if you like this, and be told, you're telling a Liverpool fan, you're not playing Everton the next season, you're not playing them under the same terms because your main interest is going to be in the European Super League, and as you say, I mean, maybe going to Stoke on a Tuesday night is a little bit of an extreme example, but playing a local derby against, with full strength sides, with everybody sort of playing to win, to do their best on a Saturday afternoon is a lot more appealing, I would suggest, to most fans than an away game in Madrid, particularly because these clubs play each other now, not every season necessarily, but on a fairly regular basis through the Champions League.
All right.
Oh, just quickly on that, us playing, we got PSG coming up. We've just played Dortmund. They're one-off fixtures that, I'm buzzing for it days in advance and thinking, we got Dortmund tonight. There was a bag of nerves, don't get me wrong. But that buzz would just fade after time, I think. Oh, who have we got this week? Oh, it's Dortmund away. All right, okay. We should do all right. It would just, the enthusiasm, I think, would be sucked out of it because, don't get me wrong, at the start, I'm sure whatever TV company, because one of them would have done it, I'm sure of it. Somebody's going to jump into bed with that Super League and would have been producing it, and it would have been an excitement to see what it looks like, how it plays out. But after a few games, I think interest would have gone down because playing Real Madrid, playing Barcelona, those are certainly, every couple of years that those games appear on the calendar and the fixture list, and they're special. When, to be fair, those Anfield nights and things, they always got, they are spectacles, aren't they? Anfield in Europe and, all these games going away, that wall in Dortmund, it's a shame, it didn't happen with no fans at the moment, but those have gone because they would have come, it would have become so sort of regular and it would have just faded, I think. That would have been, the gloss of it would soon fade.
And the other thing, Ryan, about that is that, bearing in mind that if they got their own way, these business people have sort of like walked roughshod all over football traditions. They wouldn't be home and away games, I mean, suddenly Man City versus Dortmund would be in Tokyo or it would be in LA. And to even watch it, you'd have to be getting up in the middle of the night. And, even if you want to, they'd become like exhibition matches, it's just...
They would.
But even if they were played at Dortmund, would then it be down to the TV rights to say, right, we're going to be having the Super League is going to be on a Saturday, so that fans have got more, so fans have got more chance of, popping across to Real Madrid and making a spectacle of it on a. Because you only go in there once a season. You're playing your away games. If there's 20 teams, 5 of them are going to be playing. You'd be playing Ryan's lot. You'd be playing United, Liverpool, Chelsea, Spurs, and Arsenal. I think they were going to be splitting it up in 2 groups of 10. So you've got 9. You'll have 9 away games, and the probability is 3 of them would be in the UK, which only leaves 6 away games. And if you've got some hardened fans, 6 away trips on a weekend, on playing on the Saturday or playing like they do in Spain on the Sunday, then it becomes more appealing. I 100% agree with Ryan on it would just become a novelty factor. Yeah, it's Real Madrid this weekend. Next weekend it's Barcelona, as opposed to once every 5 years you would get drawn against one of them, and it's like, we're playing Lionel Messi. The novelty factor would be gone, and within 3 or 4 years, it would just be a league like playing, Man United, Man City is a big game because it's, or Man United against Liverpool, or Chelsea against Arsenal, Chelsea against Spurs. They're big derbies. You're never going to have a derby playing against, Real Madrid. If you're playing them every year, it never becomes a derby. Real Madrid, Atletico Madrid would be their derby, but that would only happen once. So I just think 100% the novelty factor would take over after a few years, and you wouldn't get that buzz. It would just become the norm.
I think what would become accentuated as well, Steve, is that how far the game has moved away from its working class roots. We've already, it's already obviously happened a lot. I used to live down in London, and your average Chelsea fan used to be like a sort of plumber who lived in Wandsworth, and then after working in the morning on a Saturday, be driving his white van up the Wandsworth Bridge Road, and that would be the shed at Chelsea. Now, those people are completely priced out of going to watch Chelsea, and it's the same with Tottenham and Arsenal. It costs you, even if you have a sort of a modest day out at the football now, it's going to cost you, with take one of your kids or two, it's going to cost over 100 quid every time. Suddenly, if your away games are in Madrid and Barcelona, then it's going to become a rich man's sport, isn't it? It's not even now. If you might not be able to go to every game if you're not earning a lot, but you could go to a few games a season. But how much a city break costs. That's what effectively you'd be having for every away game, isn't it? It would just become a rich person's sport, and a sport for people who are watching on TV packages. I just think real football fans don't want that.
I think what you said just now about the American slant on it, where the states are so far apart, it's basically, when you're playing against your opposition away, then you're also playing against the away fans. You go to the Bernabeu, and it's a disadvantage playing away against any team, because the away team are always going to have more fans. But when they've got 99% of the fans, then you're going to struggle. Even if City were the best team in the tournament one year, they would still struggle playing against 99% of Barcelona. Going to the new camp, and pretty much everybody there is a Spaniard. So it would be it would be a tough ask. But it's funny, going back to the working class background. I was working with my partner this week, and he was saying my business partner, and he was saying talking about, I can't remember where we were. It might have been to do with West Brom, and it's in West Brom, Oldbury, Smethwick area, and he was just commenting on it, and I was saying, look, and Villa, same. It's some of these football stadiums were in the middle of terraced houses. The Vetfield for Swansea, they've all moved away from Highbury. Newcastle is, when you go up there, you're walking down a terrace street, you can see the St James's Park because it's unbelievably high, but they were built inside housing estates. And with every club now, pretty much, you look at Spurs, you look at Chelsea, all these, they've progressively moved out to industrial estates and away from their roots. And now they're trying to take it further away, metaphorically, not just the stadium, but everything. They're pricing the working man out of going to watch the game in the first place, which is where it started. I know you're saying that people could go and watch a few games. A day out for somebody who doesn't earn a lot of money in Manchester, whether it's 60, 70, 80 quid for a ticket against an average club. Plus, if you're taking somebody with you, like your son, and you're buying a programme, you're not going to get much change from 150 quid.
No, it's petrol or train money. There's food, there's drink, And
it's a lot. That's a lot of money to some people. So it's pricing the bottom end out, and then the situation of having to go abroad. You don't have to, but some of these people, they forfeit Christmas and birthday presents to go abroad, and because they've always done it. It's their tradition, and you've also got the keeping up with the Joneses factor. If your neighbour's going to go, sometimes you've got to go, and people end up taking out loans and stuff to go and watch their teams in World Cups and European Cups. So, and the only people that are benefiting are the owners. So it's it's not a good.
I can't imagine that they would be, even if this had worked, Steve. I can't imagine they would have been offering sort of like discount TV packages, would they? You know, I mean, you know, you think how much Sky TV costs now, you know, and you know, they're trying to make money out of every aspect of this. You know, the TV packages, I imagine, would be aimed at the sort of middle classes, upper middle classes in Asia and America, really, you know, and what they're willing to pay to watch, you know, teams that they physically couldn't probably go and watch very easily. So they'll spend all the money on the sort of TV packages, you know. But people here are used to sort of maybe a mixture of going to games and watching games on TV or watching the highlights on Match of the Day or whatever, you know. I mean, that, you're suddenly offering people TV packages, hundreds of pounds, you know. I mean, again, you know, it's just pricing a lot of people out of it, isn't it?
I think for me, if I was a Sky representative, I'd be looking at making money on a smaller way. You know, £5 a game. You know, like a pay-per-view. So you don't have to pay your £40 a month to have Sky Sports. Where, you know, I love my sport, but there's so much sport on there that isn't worth watching. You know, I don't know. I couldn't name one, but there's loads of sports on everything. You know, they've got the golf channel, they've got the cricket channel. There's so many channels, F1 channel, and you pay your 30 odd quid a month for it. But if you've got kids or if you've got a busy life, you don't sit down very often and you don't watch 30, 40 pounds worth of sport on a monthly basis. So if somebody can, and I don't have it. I've got DAZN for the boxing on my phone, which is a couple of quid a month. But I won't pay an extra 40 odd quid to watch something that I don't get my money's worth. Whereas if somebody said to me, oh, look, we're going to have a Super League and, you know, you can dip in and dip out and just pay, you know, you pay a £5 to watch the game. If there's 20 odd thousand fans watching from, you know, Man City at home against Real Madrid, and they've got 5,000 odd that have travelled, then, you know, and they're making some kind of revenue for the club, you know, a split between the, you know, the club and Sky, then there's got to be some monetary value in people paying pay-per-view, because you can pay pay-per-view to go and, you know, pay per play to go and play golf if you're not a member at a club, or, you know, there's lots of pay and play and pay-per-view to watch boxing. You pay 15 quid, you know, or 20 odd quid for an Anthony Joshua fight twice a year, because that's a spectacle. But when it's on every week, then you lower the price, you know, £4, £5. What do you think, Ryan?
It got me thinking about how subscription models could evolve, I think, over time. And I'm just, obviously some clubs, and I'm sure the big six, the top half of the league, I'm sure they must have more coverage on Sky. You know, there's probably more, if you were to sort of, I don't know, put someone like Sheffield United against City, top versus bottom, sort of how many games per season they're on. You think as a Sheffield United fan, you're paying 40 quid and you might see, I don't know, for argument's sake, 10 games a season, something like that, maybe one a month. I don't know the facts on it. Whereas City, you're on every weekend or every other week at least. Yeah, it's the same value. So question to you is, would you buy a Man United subscription and you were only able to watch the Man United games on your contract? Would you reckon they would ever go down that route? Because, you know, as a fan of City, I would get to see them every week potentially, you know. Whereas, like I mentioned, I don't know the facts. Sheffield United are only on once a month, maybe twice a month, perhaps. You know, when you're thinking of equality and things like that, it's been an interesting model to explore for these companies. Not that I think they're going to change it, because they're creaming it, and, you know, the money involved in Sky is phenomenal, and BT Sport for that matter. But it's, how could they change the game to make it more appealing to people to get involved and to watch it?
Well, you've got Man United TV, you've got Chelsea TV, Liverpool TV. Is there? Yeah, there's Man City. They got their own.
I certainly wouldn't be paying for it, but yeah, there is a channel and resources they put out.
So if they've got their own channel, you know, the top six. I know obviously it would cost a lot more money for the other clubs to bring their own on. But as far as I think it's at the moment it's about £5 a month, I think, or might have gone up. I know that it was a few years back, but, you know, £6 a month it is to have Man United TV. So, you know, stick it up to a tenner a month, and every Man United game have it on live. If it's a Saturday afternoon, the only trouble is then you're taking revenue away from, how many supporters aren't going to have a season ticket and watch it from home. So there's a fine balance, but they've got to bring, have some kind of focus group, but it's out in the open as opposed to the one that we just seen behind closed doors, where you've got businessmen in there from Sky, you've got chief execs who have their concern, bring in some football fans, have their, so you open it up to a focus group and, discuss, the way forward, because there has to be a way forward where it's good for the club and it's good for the fans. Because at the moment, it's good for the club and the fans are forking out for, especially you just mentioned there, Sheffield United, they're paying £40 to watch. I doubt it's twice a month. I doubt it's twice a month. So if they're paying £40 for one game a month, whereas City are paying basically, if they're paying 4 games a month, they're paying a tenner for a game, whereas Sheffield United are paying 40 and they're poor to watch.
They might as well go and watch the game live.
Yeah. Exactly.
Actually, thinking about it, I think you're right. Although I said I thought the business people were naive in the way that they approached this Super League idea, I do think that they would get the model right in terms of making it pay. And also when you've got the likes of Amazon now sniffing around, and it's equivalent in China and sort of India and America, well, not there, the Far Eastern versions of Amazon, Alibaba, and all those sort of companies. I'm sure that they would, they'd find the right model, which, to be honest, they don't have to get that many. People always talk about when these things happen, they always talk about empty stadiums, but it doesn't, a lot of these big clubs, they operate at pretty much capacity anyway, so there's always a sort of waiting list of, for most games, perhaps not a midweek sort of League Cup tie, but for most games there's a waiting list. I think they'd fill the stadiums. I don't think there'd be sort of tumbleweed floating around in the stands. I think they would fill that. But the main purpose of it would obviously be for these sort of TV packages around the world, wouldn't they? I think they would make it work. Perhaps I'm being a bit naive, thinking that they wouldn't really, but luckily we don't have to worry about it. But it will rear its head again. Their idea and the reason they're sort of thinking behind this and their justification for it hasn't gone away. It's just basically they've been caught with they've been caught out, and they've been sort of, their coup, if you like, has failed, doesn't it? But that doesn't mean that their desire for another coup has gone away.
I think what you just said there about on the TV rights, when you're on holiday in Spain or France or Italy and it's a Saturday afternoon, you can watch a Premier League game on Canal Plus, on a Saturday at 3:00. So if it did come to that, then if there was if United, City and Liverpool were playing at home on the Saturday afternoon, then I'm on about now against Real Madrid or Barcelona, then those won't be televised because of the fans. But then if the other clubs, if you've got Spurs, Arsenal and Chelsea playing away abroad, then you televise them on a pay-per-view basis. So as a club, as the Chelsea owner, your team is playing abroad, but you're not making any money from that apart from the participation fee of 290 million. But then you're also making, that game is on Chelsea TV on pay-per-view for £5. And you'd have as many fans of Chelsea subscribing to that as you would if they were playing at home. So there's got to be, there's so many scenarios where they can make money, but they picked the wrong one, So it's crazy.
Yeah, and it's also, you almost, it goes back to the naivety thing, but you think, I know people have talked about Super League for a long time, and you sort of feel they've got and it sort of goes against slightly what I've said about, that will still be their intention going forward to set up something like this. But you sort of feel that they had one crack at it, really. And to have gone at it in such a sort of cack-handed way, without sort of, thinking it through and maybe sort of saying, oh, well, we'll have to have some sort of jeopardy, some relegation, some promotion to it. Otherwise, people, to have gone through it like that, he's absolutely mind blowing, really. And I think, we're all still in this sort of 48-hour state of shock. But I think, given a bit of time, and you think back on it, you'll think, how could they have been so stupid?
Yeah.
I'm sure that will be, once the anger has subsided, I think what we'll take away from it is thinking how stupid they were.
I think Edward Woodward's probably resigned because he didn't know anything about it. He's I reckon it's just the owners, because if you take, I'm taking him as an example. I know he's resigned and we don't know exactly why he's resigned, but it will probably come out at some point in the future. But what you mentioned earlier, and about United, the backlash against United when they, and this is, it's a petty thing, but they put out a second team in the FA Cup. They were in the final of the World Super Cup against Vasco da Gama out in Brazil when Gary Neville made two horrendous mistakes and Romario scored 2 goals, and I think they beat us 3-1, I think it was. And the backlash there from the fans, he'll remember that. And that was a tiny proportion of what this thing has just come out now. And if you had people on that level, I don't know who the chief execs are at the other clubs, and they probably don't get much say. So for them not to be involved or to be asked about it, I just think these clubs have gone in and seen the pound signs, the billions of pounds of recuperating the money that they've already put back in. It's like having a club for free for 3 or 4 years. They put all the money in, and now they're going to get it given back to them. £290 million per year for playing in the competition. That's just mind blowing. If you put £1 billion into the club over the last 4 years, they're basically saying, "There you go, we're giving it back to you." So that's the. I think they haven't taken into consideration anything else.
I think the thing is with Woodward as well is he's already quite unpopular with a percentage of the United support. His house was attacked at one point.
You think?
And
100%, I think, Andy.
I'm just as a journalist and as we're broadcasting, I'm always very aware of the libel laws. So what I would say,
you could have said 99.9%.
Okay, a percentage. I didn't say that. A percentage of United fans is very unpopular with his house has been attacked. Maybe he's thinking, I don't need this. I'm going to get the blame for it, even if I wasn't involved in the talk. So I'll walk away from it.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's what happened. Perhaps the same in Mourinho. He's unpopular as a manager at Spurs, even though they're in a cup final this week. He's unpopular. They've just had some poor results, and he's probably thinking, if there's a general feeling of negativity around the club, it's me who's going to get it in the neck. So I may as well have it out with the owner now, because he probably knew he was going to be sacked at the end of the season anyway. So that'll probably come out in the wash too.
Right, if we're moving on nicely then to the Premier League, we start off with Arsenal. 2 wins, 2 draws and a loss. They're not doing too bad, Mart?
No, we've managed to recover the form a little bit. I think it was quite ironic that just after drawing with Fulham on Sunday, we were announced in this Super League tournament, having being considered an elite club, and having I think it was Matt Ryan headed the ball across from a late free kick, and then Nketiah tucked in at the back post. Played absolutely awful on Sunday, to be fair. We've progressed in Europe as well. Who's it you've got? Is it Ajax? No, was it Roma that got through?
Roma.
Because we've got the other. Yeah, because we've got the other one.
You've got Villarreal.
Villarreal, that's it. 'Cause it's Unai Emery. That's who he's managing now. So that'll be quite interesting. It's our only chance of silverware this year. I think.
Cutlery in the cafeteria?
Sorry?
Cutlery in the cafeteria? Is that the only silverware you're going to get this year?
Probably. It's a job for the players to polish over the summer to earn the wages while there's no footy on. I just think a lot of the deadwood at that team needs to be cleared out. I can't understand why we've loaned players like Joe Willock out and Ainsley Maitland-Niles, and then we've got Cedric Suarez playing right back, still somehow managing to utilise Xhaka and El Neni in midfield when, honestly, I don't know if I'd probably do a better job than them in midfield, but I can actually kick a ball forwards instead of lateral passing. I just think, especially with all this that's gone on recently, there needs to be a lot of reform in the board at Arsenal Football Club, because these owners, they're businessmen at the end of the day. They're not football fans. They're just wanting to get these players in and be able to sell them on for profit like we have done over the years. The only time we've really bought big, maybe Aubameyang and Pepe, and one of two out of those has worked. So I think, it's been a strange season altogether. I didn't think we did do very well at all. Defence was still missing probably two centre-backs at this point. Gabriel's done okay since he's come in, but he's been a bit injury prone, and he is still, I think he's 22, maybe 23. But, left-sided centre-halves, they are 10 a penny at the minute. And he did all right for Lille. But again, that's playing in France as a step up in the physicality, speed of passing. And he has made the few mistakes this year. I think without Bert Leno, we'd be a hell of a lot worse off than we are. So, I think a bit more of an improvement to defence. I don't think the midfield's too stable either. Madrid aren't going to sell us Ødegaard, not a chance. They're going to want to hold on to him. Ceballos as well, I think they're probably a bit reluctant to let us keep him. So Thomas Partey, he started well, but again, just injury. We seem to have this. I was chatting to my mate's girlfriend's dad, who's a Chelsea fan, and he was saying like Arsenal must be the team unluckiest with injuries in the last maybe 20, 30 years. Every time we seem to get a half decent player or a squad looking like they're coming together a bit, sort of everything just seems to hit the fan. I'm thinking of Eduardo specifically, we were so many points clear at the top of the league that year. I don't really think we'll maybe actually not playing in the Europa League next year might be more beneficial. Maybe we can focus on the FA Cup and getting some silverware in the bag, looking to put a stronger performance in the league. But again, not playing in Europe, your bigger players are going to want to leave because they want that extra allure of playing in front of the cameras on a weekday night, don't they? Instead of playing, no offense to Bradford City, but they don't really want to be going up there to, is it Valley Parades? I'm trying to think of the name of the ground. They don't want to be going up there. They want to be playing Signal and Gunter Park, do they?
Names Villa, like Lacazette, Aubameyang especially. Are they going to hang around?
That's the thing. How many of them are going to want to stay if we're not playing in Europe?
But
there seems to be an issue with Aubameyang, doesn't it? I mean, he's obviously an absolutely brilliant striker, and this season, it's it just seems there just seems a general. I mean, Pepe's he's a funny one because they spend so much money on him. He's been a real disappointment, and Partey, as you say, I think big reputation, had injuries, but for me, it's the Lacazette Aubameyang thing, really. You still thought at the obviously they won the cup last season. You thought that pair are just going to be the best striking partnership in the land, and it's just they haven't become bad players. There's something wrong there, isn't there? There's definitely something wrong. I don't know whether it's their relationship with Arteta or whether it's that their agents are sort of like saying you should now be looking to move on to another level. With all respect to Arsenal, to a sort of a big Spanish club or whatever. But there doesn't seem to be a lot of. Everyone says this about Arsenal because of the days of like Adams and Martin Keown, but there doesn't seem to be any heart in that side. No. There doesn't seem to be anybody. There's no Jordan Henderson, is there? And I'm not saying Jordan Henderson is the best player in the world, but there's no Jordan Henderson in that side. There's nobody driving it forward and pulling their sleeves up and saying, look, this is what the lads on the old North Bank would have wanted. This is the Arsenal way. This is it. They just seem to sort of go out, and one week they're good and one week they're bad, and they go home and take their money, and it doesn't seem to be anything more than that there, really.
For me, that's down to that's down to one thing, and that's foreign players not knowing the history of the club. When it comes to derbies and things like that, as we've discussed this before, but Arsenal in particular, you mentioned, Tony Adams, Martin Keown, Steve Bould, Lee Dixon, Ian Wright. You had all those English players with then a smattering of either Bergkamp and Vieira, Perez and Henry Vieira. So it was a mixture. Whereas you mentioned that Arsenal team that you just mentioned there, Mart, not a single one of them was a Londoner. So when you're coming up against Chelsea, or, you know, as we keep saying, you know, a cold Tuesday night somewhere, and then you've got, you know, Aubameyang, who's, you know, they made him captain, I think, to keep him, and then you've got Lacazette, who's he's a striker, but he doesn't score that many goals.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a different. I think it's a different era for Arsenal. Just throwing one thing out there, which before I forget, which came up to me when we mentioned it right at the beginning. The 6 teams that are in there, you know, you've just said just now about Arsenal, you know, they're 9th at the moment. So do you just think the 6 teams are, for the Super League, they're in there literally because of their history? When you look at the rest of the top, you look at the rest of their top 10, you've got Leicester, West Ham, Everton, Leeds, and then the Villa, and then you're going down. So literally, are those 6 there because they are the 6 biggest names in the country?
Arguably, you know, I think certainly the you know, you could argue that they're the wealthiest, but you know, you could argue the case for Everton being bigger than Tottenham. You know, Tottenham and Arsenal have never won the European Cup or the Champions League. You know, in terms of cup wins and league positions, then I would say probably the 5. But you could certainly argue a case for, you know, at this stage. You know, I think Villa are coming back, but we're not there at the moment. You could certainly argue a case for Everton being bigger than Tottenham, I think, couldn't you?
For me, no. On a personal basis, Tottenham were the glitzy side of the early 80s. You've had the Gazzers, you've had the Glenn Hoddles, you know, you've had the 1981-82, you know, they won the FA Cup 2 years in a row. Ricky Villa, Ozzy Ardiles. For me, there's, you know, a couple of my mates.
Steve, they haven't won the league since 1961.
No.
Everton won the league in the 80s, and they won European competition in the 80s. You know that I know you can sort of like do a plus and minus list for these things. I know that, which is why I didn't say they're definitely bigger than Tottenham. I do think there's an argument, you know, that that traditionally Everton are, you know, probably a bigger club than Tottenham, but you know, I do think the 6 were chosen for their wealth rather than for their prestige. Although obviously the 2 are often intrinsically linked, aren't they?
What would you say, Ryan? Tottenham, Everton, because the other 5 are, you know, their names are there straight away, aren't they? But on the Tottenham side or the Arsenal side, why do you think they've been picked?
You know, Spurs have been in the Champions League a couple of times recently. Obviously, you know, the big thing with them, they haven't won a trophy for many years, or a substantial trophy, perhaps in their own eyes. A case could be made for Everton, but then I'm sure every club, you know, could say, well, we've got X amount of fans. You could throw Leeds into the mix. I know they've had a tough couple of years, tough decade, I suppose, since their money went down, but they were in the Champions League. They got a phenomenal following themselves, you know, so I'm sure several clubs you could argue, you know, well, we've done this, we've done that. Spurs got lucky with this, being in this conversation, I don't doubt, but Levy's a very shrewd businessman. Don't, you know, make no bones about it. He knows what he's doing with these things, the deals he gets for people, the deals he brings in people in. He would have loved being at that top table, having that conversation, you know, whereas I get Everton, I don't know, they've been very vocal in the last few days about this. I think they were the first team to put a statement out rejecting the plans and sort of slamming the plans. You know, they seem a very people-oriented club. Yeah. The owner, I don't know much about it, if I'm totally honest. However, you just get the vibe with Everton. They would have gone, no thanks. You know, Liverpool community, the blue half anyway, would have just revolted, and they would have seen it, I think. You know, they would have been a little...
I'm just going to say, Ryan, I think, I mean, although he's not the owner, Bill Kenwright, he's very much the heart of that club, and he's, you know, I know he made his money in sort of TV and stuff and the theatre. He's very much a sort of local lad, Everton fan since he was a kid and all that sort of stuff. I don't think he would have, you know, Labour supporter, so I don't think he would have signed up for something like this. And I don't think the owners would have done this without consulting with him. I just think, but I think you're right, actually. I mean, I think probably what just about tipped it for Tottenham, you know, apart from obviously their wealth, is was the fact they got to the Champions League final. I think that probably
there's that, and you know, Twitter's been a great place the last few days, reading different opinions from different fans. couple of Spurs. Well, you know Gary Owen quite well, Steve, as well.
Yeah,
Gary's a big Spurs fan, and he was saying, make no bones about it, Spurs have got a pretty stadium. You know, they got this phenomenal 1.2, whatever it was. Fill that up with full of people. It's a sight to be seen. You know, I've been there myself. I saw them beat Norwich there just over a year ago. And the last times I was working in London and went to see the game, it was a great stadium, really good atmosphere and vibe, a buzz about it. It was excellent. It's just Spurs haven't won anything to warrant being there, but they've got the resources. And like I said, Levy would have loved being in that conversation. He would have been almost like, pick me, you know, get me with the big boys.
Well, they would have wiped out the cost of the stadium, wouldn't they, straight away as well within a couple of years.
Yeah.
Again, as the businessman sitting there thinking, 290 million a year. If I can just use 100 million on the transfer budget, which they would have been spending anyway without that money, they got 200 million. They paid for the stadium in 4 or 5 years without putting their hands in their pockets. So you know, there's lots of it's all about the money, but that was. I was just interested to find out, because obviously United, City, Chelsea, Liverpool, they're given, but Arsenal and the Spurs, you know, you're right, Dan. There is an argument for a couple of others, but for me, the Spurs one was more of, I think they've gone on the name, you know, Tottenham Hotspur, the history. You know, name me a famous, you know, Everton side. You've got, you know, your Lineker, the famous FA Cup. You know, when they've won a couple of FA Cups in the 80s and 90s, and you know, Howard Wilkinson was Howard Kendall in the 90s. So they've had, you know, but for me, the Spurs was more of a case of there's more history there for me. And I was thinking maybe they've gone on. You know, you're trying to market it for clubs abroad as well. So if you've got you know, your Real Madrids and your Barcelona fans, and it's going, you're going to Everton, and they're like, where's Everton? Where is Tottenham? It's in London. And I know when they built the new Wembley, the best place for Wembley was at the NEC in Birmingham. And the biggest reason for them building it in Wembley, I'm not going to make any bones about it, around Wembley Stadium, it's a horrible area. Yeah. You know, and the sole reason why they built it there was because it's in London. All the middle section of Wembley, it's sold out corporately to businessmen in Dubai and those kind of areas. And they wouldn't have had it in Birmingham. Even though they could have flown down to London for the night, they wanted to go to Wembley, watch the game in their corporates, and then go off to business meetings in London. And that was the only reason why they built Wembley, because I had a tour of there before it was even open. And that was the reason. And then they regenerated some of the area around it. Stratford, isn't it?
No, it's Brent, Wembley, Harrow, Stratford's the East End. That's where West Ham's ground.
The Olympic Stadium, yeah.
Not Stratford. What's this? There's an area there that isn't very nice, and they rejuvenated it. No,
it might be what's it called? It's sort of Brent, isn't it? South Wembley and those sort of areas. And
I thought it was called Stafford Shopping Centre.
No,
anyone got a tube map?
There's an area there, and I remember when I went down there, they bought like loads of terrace houses.
Harlesden, is it Harlesden?
No. They bought loads of terrace houses in the area. Say again, what?
It's not Brentwood, is it?
No.
That's Essex.
I'm just making names up now, I think.
Yeah. But
the areas around there are Wembley, Harlesden, Wealdstone, Harrow, Stanmore, Pinner. A lot of those are upper class areas. It's Wembley itself and Harlesden, which are
right outside the stadium. They
yeah.
bought loads of terraced houses off people. Give them above market value to do them up and stuff like that. They rejigged the Wembley train station, the tube station, and put the Wembley turrets above it and stuff. And they spent a lot of money on it. So to try and market Everton to the Barcelona compared to Spurs, who've got a brand new stadium in London, that could have swung it as well.
I think you're right. Steve. I think thinking about it, you're absolutely right. It's effectively a sort of a big glamorous cities tournament, isn't it? That they were talking about. It reminds me that what became the UEFA Cup actually started out as the Intercity Fairs Cup in like the 60s and the 50s. It's actually the last trophy that Newcastle won. It was in 1968 they won the Intercity Fairs Cup. And to get into that, you had to be a city that had one of these trade, that was like the European trade fairs. So they were like really big major capital cities. And in the early days, the likes of Chelsea and Arsenal and Tottenham couldn't go in it. There had to be a team called London. And so it was a mixture of players like Jimmy Greaves and people like that from the different London clubs playing for London against Barcelona. And Birmingham City could go in it because they had the city's name. Aston Villa couldn't go into it. So it's almost the same idea, that you're basically sort of saying these are big, attractive, sometimes capital, or if not capital, very big regional cities like Barcelona. And people will want to go there for the weekend and they'll find it attractive. And it's a whole package you can sell. Whereas if Leicester... if Leicester had stayed at the top of the Premier League and obviously still got all of that money from the sort of Thai government and the Thai business people, it wouldn't necessarily, as you suggested with Everton, be a very attractive option for your average Catalonian football supporter to go to Leicester for the weekend. I would suggest.
Yeah, they fly into London, they watch the game, they go to the theatre. They spend the weekend. These billionaire, millionaire businessmen have corporates like they do in Wembley, and I haven't been to the Spurs Stadium, but I know a guy that spent 6 months down there doing the electrics, and he said it's an unbelievable place. With like their 15 restaurants and all this, it's a crazy place to be. But it's probably down to that. Right, come back to the Villa then.
We have to.
After in the last 4 or 5 weeks, I know we always say it's there's no such thing as a one-man team, but it's a coincidence that since Grealish has been out, the results haven't been as they were. What are your thoughts on the last month?
I mean, it's no coincidence. I mean, obviously we've got some other decent players apart from Grealish, but it's no coincidence. I think Ollie Watkins is still a really good striker. He's hit the ground running in the Premier League. It's his first season. He's a really good striker. He scores lots of different types of goals, and he's still scoring, but he's feeding off scraps. There's nobody feeding him. Grealish was his main supply route, really. And when the two of them are together, he could thread the balls through. Ollie Watkins makes some really clever runs and would score goals. We haven't been scoring goals. And it's very simply because nobody is giving the ball to Ollie Watkins. And I think we really do miss Grealish from that point of view. And I'm in danger of repeating myself from the last time we spoke, but I think the big disappointment has been Barkley, because the Villa fans you see a lot of Villa fans on Twitter, and they're saying, we should get Tammy Abraham back in the summer. We need a hand up there. But as you well know, Premier League clubs these days don't play with two strikers. Often Man City don't even play with one. They're getting all their goals from sort of attacking midfielders. So, what we really needed was a sort of supply route to Ollie Watkins, but also somebody from that sort of forward midfield position, getting into the box, picking up the pieces, scoring goals. The start of the season, when you saw against Liverpool, when we, sorry, Martin, but away at Arsenal and, away at Leicester, when we're getting those results, that's what was happening. Grealish was the supply route. Watkins was the goal scorer. Barkley's behind him. Suddenly, Grealish is out injured. Doesn't look like he's, probably going to be back until May. And Barkley is just completely gone off the boil, for whatever reason. So what you're left with is a very sort of, still quite a solid goalkeeper and back four, quite good defensive midfielders, but then some fairly average players not really creating anything for Ollie Watkins. And what that means is what you've seen over the last few weeks, really. We're still quite competitive in games. Sounds like we've been quite competitive in the first half against Man City, but we're now losing. It's the same at Liverpool. We were quite competitive, but we ended up losing. There's not that sort of. I don't think teams are frightened about Villa's attacking ability the way they were at the start of the season, and that's for that very obvious reason that they haven't got to worry about Grealish. Barkley's not even getting in the side, and they're looking at the Villa side and thinking, well, okay, got to keep an eye on Watkins because he can score from half a chance. But the rest of them, you've got two wide players that probably can't beat the first man with a cross, and there's no creative ball coming in from the central midfield. So I think that where does that leave us? It leaves us mid-table. season petering out a bit, and you know, with some work to do in the summer transfer market. But you know, compared to where we were last season, you know, to finish halfway up the table, having escaped through the skin of our teeth on the last day last season, to finish halfway up the table, and even though the second half of the season has been a bit frustrating, still got a lot of good memories from the first half of the season, you know, and he's still got a decent squad there to build on. You know, he's got a good goalkeeper, he's got a good defence, a couple of decent defensive midfielders. Just needs perhaps one or two more creative flair players in the sort of forward part of the pitch. And I think if he does that, you know, we could push on again next season.
Barkley hit the ground running, didn't he? What's happened?
Well, he was out injured. He got a bad injury earlier in the season, and looked like it was a hamstring or something. But he was out for quite a while, and then he came back, and he just doesn't look fit. You know, I mean, he comes on for 5-10 minutes, he's sweating away, you know, and he's sort of, you know, so he's not starting games. And when he's coming on, even when he's coming on after sort of 60 minutes, 65 minutes, he doesn't look fully fit. He doesn't look you know, match fit, and he's, I hate to say this about players, but he doesn't really, you know, he's making a lot of sloppy mistakes. He's sort of giving the ball away, and you know, and I don't know. I mean, you wonder what's going to happen to Ross Barkley, really, you know, because I mean, I don't think he's going to get a contract. He's not going. Villa aren't going to sign him because, you know, Chelsea want big money for him. I don't think Villa are going to sign him on the. They would have signed him if he carried on like he was at the start of the season, but
yeah,
the way he is now, I don't think they're going to sign him. So, you know, he's going to go back to Chelsea. What are they going to do? You know, they're not going to play him. He's going to have to go out and loan somewhere else on high wages. You know, teams will have watched what happened at Villa. So unless he really picks up in the last, sort of 8 games of the season, 7 after tonight, you know, which means starting and it means running games, which you know, a player of his sort, of his stature, should be doing. I can't really see what's going to happen with him. You know, I mean, I suppose being selfish, that's not our problem, but our problem is that we brought him in to do something specific, and he started off doing that like a house on fire, but now he's just drifted away. You know,
is he only there to the end of the season?
Yeah, season-long loan. Yeah. You know, and I imagine, you know, Chelsea will probably be paying a chunk of his salary, and Villa will be paying the rest. You know, I mean, if he's on 100 grand a week, whatever, I don't think Villa will be paying the whole 100. I think maybe Villa are paying like 60 and Chelsea paying 40 or something like that. You know, but I still think Dean Smith's not the sort of manager who is going to keep a player who isn't really pulling his weight for one reason or another. It may be down to, you know, maybe he's still got that niggling injury. Maybe he's never regained match fitness. I don't know. But for whatever reason, he's not pulling his weight during games. And there's no way that Dean Smith and his team will put up with that. You know, that's not their sort of player, really.
So obviously only one win in 5. City tonight. You got West Brom. You know, whatever that is. Next West Brom on the weekend.
Sunday night.
Everton, United, Tottenham, and Palace. Those are your 6 or 7 games left.
Chelsea last game.
I've only got as far as Tottenham, but so you've got some tough games. So, you know, when we last spoke, you were around about 5th or 6th place. Grealish was still playing. You were pretty much level on points with Liverpool with a couple of games in hand, thinking, you know, you could really be pushing for top 6. Whereas now, with those games ahead and Grealish out, now you're looking at probably 12th.
Yeah, I think.
You happy with that?
I think 11th or 12th. I mean, it's all relative, isn't it? You know, as I said, you know, like from where we were last season, if you'd said to me at the start of the season you're going to finish 11th, I'd have bitten your hand off, you know. But given the way we played at the start of the season, and you know, we seem to have clicked very well, then obviously it's a bit disappointing to have sort of drifted off a little bit. But yeah. I think the other thing to bear in mind is, you know, what it's like at the end of the season. You know, I think we're a sort of classic side now who people will want to play because, you know, we're not going to hit the European spots. We can't go down. We're mid-table. We're drifting. There's a number of players there who probably understand that they're not going to be with Villa after this season. You know, I would imagine the likes of El Ghazi and people like that probably have gone. El Mohammadi and I, you know, Barkley probably realises he's not going to get a contract unless something miraculous happens. So I think, you know, I just think that we're a sort of side that the likes of West Brom, you know, I mean, it looks almost impossible for West Brom to stay up. You know, I mean, if you look at in terms, if you add in goal difference, they're basically 10 points adrift with 7 games to go. You know, so because of the goal difference, I mean, they're about 9 points, but then you add the goal difference in, it's effectively 10. They got 7. You know, they've got a tough run in as well. They've got some tough games.
Yeah,
but, you know, you can easily see them turning Villa over because it's going to mean more to them than it means to us. And you saw the way they played at Chelsea. You know, I mean, players like Callum Robinson. You know, I've always thought, we had him at Villa as a kid. I always thought, he's not a Premier League player. I mean, he looked like like a sort of superstar at Chelsea. And the one goal he scored was superb. And then they beat somebody at home 3-0, didn't they? Southampton. Yeah, Southampton are like Villa. You know, a classic mid-table club at the moment who everybody wants to play because, to use the old cliche, we're already on the beach.
I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, I'd have 100% agreed and said, it's pretty much impossible. But the way that the results are going, they still got a game in hand over Burnley. If they do beat the Villa, if they do beat whoever they play in their next game, it puts them on 27 points. So they're 6 points behind Burnley, and they're level with Fulham, and they still got a game in hand over Fulham. So they could jump above Fulham within the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, it doesn't matter about Fulham, does it? Because they're
no.
Through.
But you never would have expected them to beat Southampton, and you never would expect them to beat Chelsea.
No.
So to win those 2 games has given them, it's a lifeline. It's slim, but as opposed to 2 or 3 weeks ago, you'd have looked at the next 2 and thought, well, they're not going to beat Chelsea. Southampton are always a decent side, so they should have turned them over. And so they've won. And you look at the other 2, Sheffield United have lost 6 in a row. Fulham have lost 5 out of 6 and a draw. So on form, they've had more wins than any of the last 5 or 6. Newcastle have jumped up because they West Ham they beat, didn't they? They beat West Ham 2-0. So that's given them a bit of a push, and it's dragged Southampton back down into it. But I agree that they're probably down. Yeah. But the next 2 weeks,
Newcastle, I think, have picked up, haven't they? Obviously, they've got their best players back from injury. They've got a few points. Brighton are scrapping away out of it. They got a point at Chelsea last night. Burnley, you always feel Burnley know how to get out of situations like that. They'll go somewhere and get a result. They're a very sort of, they're not the most attractive side to watch, but they are very effective. They've stayed in the division for a few seasons now, and everybody writes them off every season, and they stay up there. I just think, I think maybe if they've got another 10 games, Albion, apart from the ones that they've got, I think Allardyce might be able to do it. I just think he perhaps came in too late. They've got too few points on the board, and I think they're just going to, and looking at their fixtures, they've got some tough fixtures. I think they're just going to run out of games.
I think the problem, you just mentioned Allardyce there. I think when he first came in, I might be wrong, but it's something along the lines of they were awful. They lost. They went through a big losing streak when he came in, and I'm sure after 5 or 6 games, people were like, Sam's going to take him down, and that's probably that section of the season where that's where they're going to go down.
Yeah.
When he first came in, I'm sure it was, they didn't win a game. They were losing every week. They lost 3 or 4-0, and so
somebody put 6 past them, Steve, at home, didn't they? I can't remember who. I think somebody put 6 past them at the Hawthorns.
City.
Was it City? Yeah, City put 6 past them, didn't they? And I think, you're right. If they picked up a few more points in that period, they might have a better chance. And I still think that, you're right. I think their form is good, and they could certainly get some results. They could certainly win at Villa. I just think that Burnley and Brighton, if you look, effectively, if you look at the points that Albion can get, and you look, they effectively probably have, even if they won sort of 4 or 5 out of their last 7 games, Brighton, Burnley, and Newcastle have only got to scramble a few points to be above them.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah. They'd have to win everything. Right, on to City then. Lost against Chelsea, quadruple gone. Gutted about that?
Look, I agree with what Pep always comes out and says. Nobody's talking about it. No doubt. He wants to win everything. He's a trophy addict. Yeah. And it would have been spoken internally. I don't think many City fans actually saw it as a realistic approach. Disappointed, don't get me wrong. I thought it was a lackluster performance. The front 3 that day were underwhelming. They're out of form. Sterling's a big concern going into this run in now with other trophies available. go for his own cause going into the European Championships. I don't think people see him as a guaranteed starter for England at the minute, which, you know, for him as a personal level, it's tricky. So yeah, deflated after it, but you know, shook that off after a couple of hours and was like, right back to it. Then, you know, we're still in for a potentially extremely successful season, but quadruples off the table. So be it, I suppose.
Ryan, it seems to me watching Sterling, it seems almost like he's trying too hard to get his form back. I mean, it's you know, you watch him. I was watching him in that semi-final. You know, he's running into cul-de-sacs all the time. He's not looking up and putting another player in when he can. He's on the edge of the box and he's shooting on sight and it's going way over the bar. And you wonder whether, you know, one of the City coaches wouldn't sort of be working with him, you know, to try and sort of iron out those things from his game, because he's always had those things in his game, really. You know, he's obviously a tremendous player, but he's had those faults in his game, hasn't he? And they don't seem to be disappearing.
Yeah, it's almost, I agree, he's almost trying too hard at some aspects. And where he's best is coming in at the far post when the ball is the other side, and you know, and running at people and getting past them and getting balls in. And don't get me wrong, he has scored the odd few goals, good goals, impacting goals from outside of the box. But he's at his most dangerous, you know, where his strengths lie elsewhere. And he's trying to do different people's role. He's not quite that playmaker, you know, and he's coming central in a lot of the games. And it's like, get out of the way, go and do what you're good at elsewhere. I think the form of Foden, who obviously I've said before, I'm a massive, massive fan of. Yeah. I think that's been to Sterling's detriment, because they can both be played in similar positions. And it's if now it's not a case of move out the way, Sterling, but he's not golden boy anymore. You know, Foden is hopefully, fingers crossed, the future of it. You know, and other fans are putting these accolades of he's an ex-Gaza, he's that sort of ilk of player. And you know, perhaps I'm way off the mark, but I just get the vibe that Sterling's a little bit knocked off his pedestal a little bit, you know. And this he's had a run of games he didn't start for ages, you know. And Pep does that sometimes, and he just gives players the old kick up the backside. And he hasn't scored as many goals this year, and you'd expect, with the amount of midfield attacking players who have scored goals, you'd expect Sterling to be right up there. You know, he hit a great run of form probably last season, where he was goals, and he was so influential. You expected him to go to the next level, and it's as if he's hit that. He's plateaued a little bit, but you know, luckily we've had goals coming from elsewhere. He's frustrating, don't get wrong, but Mahrez, as much as he's quality, his first touch is unbelievable. He's one of the most frustrating players to watch in a City shirt for me. I find him quite frustrating, and then he'll pop up with a wonder goal. So yeah. I can't complain, Steve. Still going for a treble.
I suppose the thing is as well, Ryan, that you know, you say about Mahrez, but Foden looks like a guaranteed starter now. You know, for brilliant player, and Mahrez and Sterling. But Sterling will also be thinking, you know, who might they bring in at the end of the season? You know, I mean, they're not likely to keep playing. You know, they've already said Aguero's off, isn't he? You know, so they'll be looking at attacking options in the summer. Yeah, and Sterling looks like the obvious one to replace, really.
I think Sterling's I think Foden's on a different level to Sterling. Yeah. You're talking about a playmaker, and you know, the natural fault of Sterling, and it's always been the same. He doesn't look up. You know, you look at somebody like Foden or De Bruyne or Fernandes at United. You could pick one or two playmakers from every team in the Premier League, and Sterling seems to be kind of caught in no man's land, because he's not a playmaker, and he's not a natural goal scorer. You know, if you put him in a mid-table, if you put him playing for Wolves or Crystal Palace, he wouldn't score goals because he wouldn't have any service. The only reason why he scored goals at Man City was because I'd like to see the stats on how many he missed as opposed to how many he scored, because he did the same for England. You know, in the last tournament he played for England, and he was playing as kind of a striker. You know, I think every England fan was shouting at the TV because he couldn't hit the barn door. But he doesn't look up. He's that stereotypical 9-year-old that you're going to coach, who is running for the ball, looking at the floor. And that's my problem with him. Whereas Foden, you look at him, and he's not even looking at the ball. The ball's at his feet. And you watch him against, watch him back when he played against Swansea, which is a different level. He's got more time, and he's literally looking for the next, like what a proper playmaker will do, like a Hoddle or a De Bruyne. You're not looking to score. You're not looking for the Hollywood pass. You're looking for a pass and then to have it back. And the amount of touches he gets in the game is unbelievable. And for me, 100%, he would be the first choice on my team sheet for City and for England.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's form lately. Obviously, lost 2 in the last 5, which would be disappointing. What would you say that's down to?
Yeah, you're right. Shock defeats. However, you look at the bigger picture, and Pep came out and said this in the league, lost 2 of the last 28. So you can look at it in both ways. If somebody would have said to me, Christ, I don't know, November time when we had a real, drawing at West Brom, who are now pretty much on the brink of relegation. We were drawing against them in November. I spoke the last time I was on. It was that sort of pivotal moment, apparently in the dressing room where they, they had a few concerns, nose to nose with a couple of people. Turning point, a phenomenal run, and now we're a handful of points clear going into the last 7 or 8 games of the season. So if you'd have offered me this in November, I would have laughed and said, don't be so ridiculous. That's never going to be the case, because at the time, obviously, Liverpool were doing pretty well and other clubs are at the top, and we were well below that sort of standard that we've been performing at, certainly in the winter and spring months. So, that week we lost to Leeds. Again, disappointing, 10 men for 45 minutes. They nicked it in the last minute and they deserved it. They played excellently, but I think our style plays into their hands. Leeds are a great counter-attacking team and they're fit as fiddles. They're up and down. Great. However, that was almost a free shot. It wasn't a must-win, and we played Dortmund midweek. We rested key players.
Yeah.
And you look back now and, all right, yeah, we lost. It was disappointed. Congratulations, Leeds. They've taken 4 points off us this season. I don't think there's another club that's done that. Maybe there is, but certainly not many, and certainly not one of the promoted teams to do that. It's a great achievement for them, I'm sure. But going into that week, had we lost against Dortmund, it would have been, hugely impactful. Two big games we've lost. But would you rather lose to Leeds or Dortmund that week? It's an obvious answer, obviously.
I think all I would say is, I think the key phrase you used there was it wasn't a must-win game. I think it's been apparent for quite a while that City have walked away with the lead. And okay, a bit of a loss of form, United will get closer to them, but basically they've won the league, and it must be very difficult then to motivate yourselves. The next league down, you look at Norwich, they've absolutely walked that league, but they've lost the last 2 games. And I think if it's obvious to you as a dressing room that you've won the league, and then you've got all these other clubs who are playing, they've got different ambitions. Leeds have got different ambitions. They just come up, and I think it must be very, very difficult to motivate yourself. I'm sure if it was a lot closer at the top, I don't think City would have lost those games.
Yeah, look at Liverpool at the tail end of last season.
Yeah,
once they won it, we slapped them. I think it was 4-0 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And they dramatically lost form because, like you said earlier, they're on the beach. They've done their job, and I'm a bit hesitant to say we've won the league. I know we're a substantial distance ahead of United, but a bad run of form, things can catch up. We were 8 points behind in the start of April, the year we won our first trophy. Things go few. I was hoping United would have slipped up on the weekend, I'll be honest. Until it's done and dusted, I think Pep is of the competitive nature. He'll want to win that trophy as soon as possible, because then he can play teams, and every game is not a must win. If you get points, great. If you're not going to break any records this season, and then all focuses can go elsewhere, which I think he's driven real sort of focus on that this year. It's played into his hands with the Champions League, with hopefully Aguero sometime soon coming back and featuring at some stage going into the run-in.
I think me and Martin have spoken the last few weeks, regarding the quadruple. You had 2 wins to win the FA Cup, 1 win to win the Carabao Cup because you're in the final, semis and final now of the Champions League. So you've got 6 important games left this season. 11 points clear at the top. You know, there's only 7 games left. So, you know, you'd need to lose probably 4, at least 4 or 5 of them. So the focus really is off the league. So you've probably lost, to say, 2 of the last 5 because you've put out, you know, not so strong sides. But you'd expect City, with the amount of, you know, the depth that they've got, to be putting out weakened sides against, you know, anywhere from Leeds down and still win, you know.
Anything is possible with Man City. I've learned that over the years, in good times and bad times. So, you know, the bookies, I think we're 1 to 1,000 or something to win the league. Don't get me wrong, you know, it's locking odds on. I'll completely agree there. But anything is possible. Like, people still look at the Aguero moment. It will never be top. And I pray to God it isn't, you know, the case. But until it's mathematically accomplished, it's still, and I'm sure the club will be saying the same. You know, we got to win it as soon as possible, and then we can put it, you know, out of our sort of the forefront of our minds. And it's, don't get me wrong, in my heart, if I was betting man, I would go City going to win the league, obviously. However, it's still mathematically possible, so I'm being very hesitant yet, because these things happen. Going into the Spurs game now this weekend, Mourinho again is another cup addict, and I felt if it was ever going to be, you know, an opportunity, he's going to win a cup final. He loves these one-off games, so him being sacking was a positive, I suppose, for City. But then you look at Mason now; he's come in, he's won his first game, he's got Bale straight in the team, which, you know, that speaks volumes. I think he's gone, all right, enough of the Mourinho style of play. I want to put my own stamp on it. Bale was pretty good, you know, overall in the game. He looked, you know, he's full of smiles. He spoke really well after in the post-match interview tonight. So, you know, it's by no means a given that we've got that trophy in the bag yet. I think it'll be a good encounter. It'll be a tough game. Penalties.
With no Harry Kane?
Is he, what was the, I haven't heard what's, there's been so much else in the press this week. What's the latest with him?
I don't know about the latest, but obviously he went over on his ankle, didn't he? And he's been over on it quite a few times. Yeah. And I presume they'll have him in bubble wrap as long as they can to make sure that, because, you know, they're not, you know, they're 6th in the league. You know, they've won tonight. They've got Son, who's very good, and, you know, they should beat any club from 10th downwards. And they're going to keep him away from everything for as long as possible, mainly down to the Euros. I know the club aren't involved in that, but he's got his own influence as well. So he's going to be out, I presume.
Yeah, it's a big loss, obviously, for Spurs. He's their main talisman, isn't he? But then De Bruyne is going to be missing with us, I'd imagine. You know, he's not going to be, well, saying that, Pep rotates the cup team. I know the American goalie will probably be in the sticks. So whether De Bruyne would have even started anyway, I don't know. But it's a shame because you've probably got the 2 best players from each club who aren't featuring in the cup final. But it's an opportunity for somebody else then, I suppose, to come in and make a difference. But yeah, I'm expecting an exciting affair, hopefully, without Mourinho involved anyway.
What about just a technical question? Obviously, Stone's got a straight red tonight. Does that mean this is the next? Is that the next game, or is it the next league game he misses?
So when it came up on my phone here earlier on saying red card, I looked at Stones. That's the first thought that came into my mind. He's been excellent since November. Steve, I remember on a show with you previously, you asked me my best 11 going into the United game, I think it was, and Stones wasn't at the time performing, and I said, well, it's Laporta and Diaz. Stones isn't quite making it at the races. He proved me wrong completely. Not saying he heard the podcast, but he certainly proved me wrong. Him and Diaz have been phenomenal as a back 2 centre-half pairing. I can't see those 2 featuring in the team of the year together. I'm sure Diaz will be. I know he's touted as an actual player of the year, but those 2 have been, the pillars at the back there, that the foundations that the team have been able to build upon. So him being missing is a big blow if he is suspended. However, Laporta coming in, slotting in there is not a bad replacement because I rate him again so highly.
Wouldn't it be a Premier League game? It wouldn't be the cup final, would it?
That's what I'm wondering. Would it be the next Premier League game he misses?
If it's FA Cup, you're suspended. So I got a feeling it would be League Cup suspension. I think because it's worked in our favour in the past, where we've had two important league games and a player's been sent off, and it's been a case of don't panic. We've got a midweeker against a lower division club, and it's worked in our favour. So perhaps he does miss the final. What has he done to get the red tonight?
I don't know, but Villa have had a player sent off as well, haven't they? So it's evened up. But I don't know. But it was a straight red, so maybe it was a reckless challenge or something, sort of. But I think what you said, Diaz has been absolutely immense, hasn't he? And Gundogan has had a fabulous season as well. I mean, those are two. Whatever happened to Nathan Ake? Did he play at the start of the season and then just end up basically not? You don't have reserves these days, but just on the bench.
Obviously he came in. I think he probably knew what his role was going to be as that sort of backup, come in and do a job in games like a Leeds game, where it's he's probably, if I'm honest, a mid-table player, a good mid-table centre half. He was never going to be the starting centre half. I think he knew that when he came in. However, he's a great player to have around. I think he starts for a lot of other clubs. Yeah, he had a nasty injury. I think it was Boxing Day. He picked up a knock and he didn't feature until. Who was it? It was a midweek league fixture, probably the one before Leeds. He came back going into the first Dortmund game, the first leg. I forget who it was against now, but he came in and it was a case of Ake's back in contention. Again, we'll boost the numbers and we'll no doubt start every single Premier League game once things are potentially wrapped up before the end of the season. He's a good player, but he's not an elite player, I wouldn't have said.
No. Yeah.
So PSG coming up, home and away. Obviously, that's now your biggest game of the season, biggest two games of the season. Away first, next Wednesday, whenever it is, 28th of April. So a week tonight. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the bookies have got us favourites for the tournament, but I would back PSG. They got to the final last year and lost 1-0 against an extremely good Munich team. I thought Munich would have put a couple past them last year, but they held them to 1-0. They did well to overcome Munich. I know they missed Lewandowski. I think that made a big impact. Choupo-Moting up front and Lewandowski. For me, there's levels of difference there. But, they could have comfortably beaten Munich in the second leg. Neymar, he was probably the best I've ever seen him. I've never been a massive fan of his, but he was unreal that night. He performed extremely well. He hit the worldie from the outside the box that smashed the crossbar. He had a Gaza 96 moment when he missed the ball on the goal line. He was unplayable at times. And had he, he didn't score at the end of the day, I know, but had he put those chances away, they would have battered Munich on the scoreline that night. And that was the first half, I believe, as well, some of those chances. But they got through. I think they're a force to be reckoned with. They're obviously not the form in the league, doesn't show that. But Pochettino's come in and I think he's up their game. It's going to be a hell of a task. Obviously, I want to get past them, however that is. I think it'll be close. It might be a case of, away goals, somebody going through on away goals maybe. I think it's key that Mbappe's kept quiet. He's a phenomenal talent. Whether we can keep the scoreline down, because I don't think we'll score as many goals as we'll need to, because they will score goals. So we need to have that as low numbers as possible, obviously. But we seem to be struggling to score a couple of goals at the moment. So that's why I don't think Aguero would feature in the first leg, certainly, but give it an extra couple of weeks to have somebody like him. Potentially might have had a league game or two, with his experience. He's just got to be in the right place at the right time to pull the trigger. And I think if he could have an impact going into his last few games in a City shirt, would just be the swan song that I think David Silva never really had at the end of last season. Two club legends who've left in the last 12 months. If Aguero goes out on a whim now, it would just be that. It's such a shame because I haven't got my head around it yet. He's been such an influence on the club. The Aguero moment was on my birthday. The first time we ever won the league. You can imagine I had a stinking hangover on a Sunday afternoon and he sticks that in. I had another hangover the next day, put it like that. So somebody asked me, where does that rank? And I said, it's up there, really is up there with personal moment of my life. That it was just the perfect footballing moment.
You need to be. What moment? I don't know what moment you're talking about.
Do you know when Rio Ferdinand's face? You know that picture on the Johnny Evans sort of what?
I think it's a shame in a way that it's not the final. City and PSG, because it's going to be such on paper, it's going to be such a cracking match. I mean, I agree with you. PSG against Bayern Munich in the second leg, how they didn't get a hatful of goals in that first half. I was like, Neymar hit the woodwork like twice in 2 minutes, and some of the stuff he was doing. I'm like you, really. I've always thought, given the level of his reputation, you sort of sometimes wonder what it's all about. But in that game, he really showed what he's about, didn't he? And Mbappe's turn of pace and his ability, they just looked absolutely phenomenal. I just think it'll be a great game, really. And you wouldn't, you don't think of Real Madrid versus Chelsea as being a sort of second best, but it sort of is, really. I think, I mean, I would love to see that as the final. I think, just totally different styles of football. City's sort of patient build up and fast passing game, and PSG getting the ball over the top, and sort of Mbappe, Jason. It's just a wonderful sort of contrast of styles, And having said all that, probably a load of crap now.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're looking at the Champions League semi-finals and the Europa League semi-finals. Of the 8 teams involved, 4 of those are English teams, and I think that speaks volumes. I think it's been brushed under the carpet a lot recently. You've got 4 English teams out of 8 there. A lot of big names have fallen by the wayside. And you tend to find, I think there was one year where you had, I forget what year it was now, were the both finals contested by English teams?
Yeah, never happened before.
It was Chelsea and Arsenal, and Tottenham and Liverpool. Chelsea and Arsenal in the Europa League, and
even in the semi-finals of the Champions League, though, you had 3 out of 4 English clubs, didn't you?
That's
right.
It
was City, Tottenham, Barcelona, and Liverpool.
Yeah.
It's those sorts of things speak volumes. In the years gone by in the Champions League, particularly Spanish clubs, have dominated. You've had Atletico, Barca, and Real Madrid tend to be the 3 of the last 4. So when you look at it from the outset, even though Arsenal haven't had the greatest league season, they're still in the semi-final of a European Cup. It'd be great to see an Arsenal United final and a Chelsea City final, if I'm honest. I don't think that will be the case. I can't see Chelsea and City coming through it. I think one of them will slip up, hopefully Chelsea. But then the prospect of Real Madrid in the final of the Champions League, they are the Champions League club, with their history on it.
And aren't they the side who beat you the only other time you got to semi-final?
Way before my time, but yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
It's going to be a bumpy few weeks, but the Dortmund one, my heart rate when they scored and things weren't going right for us, I was thinking, this is typical. It's the same old year in, year out. And I was thinking then, not defeat this, but you get pessimistic, don't you, when your team's losing and you're going out. And you're thinking, right, this is a massive 45. If not, what's going to happen? And my first thoughts were, right, next season we got to get this player, we got to get that player. And then all of a sudden we score the goals and things calm down and you're comfortable. In the last 10 minutes, pressure was off when we scored the goals needed 3 goals to get back in it.
Yeah.
I just think it's a massive opportunity. We've Pep's obviously never got closer with City. He's got a huge point, chip on his shoulder probably, and he wants to prove a point. It's not the case of this or bust. I think he does stick around whether he wins the trophy or not. I do think he's got at least another year at the club, but it's an impacting statement. If we win the Champions League, we can then go to your Haalands or whoever potentially could be coming in and say, well, the Champions League, we want to go back to back. It's, let's bring you in and go from strength to strength, hopefully.
I think they've got. I think PSG's only advantage. Obviously, they got Mbappe and Neymar, but City have got the better side in strength. Pochettino obviously knows the Premier League sides inside out and how to play them. So that if they didn't have Pochettino, I think it would be an easier win for them. They've done well against Munich, and they've got a decent side there, but that would be quite a bit of an advantage to have the insight of an ex-Premier League manager who've played City on numerous occasions. You know, they'll be set up completely differently than what they were against Bayern Munich. You know, knowing the club as he does, you know, he was touted as, you know, maybe even a replacement for Pep or at United, you know, a couple of years ago. So he's looked into the size. He'll know every player. You know, I'm not saying that other foreign managers don't, but it's totally different game when you've played against the teams, you know, week in, week out, year in, year out. He'll know the philosophy. He'll know the inner workings. So for me, that's the big advantage that they've got. But I think
they've got a few. They've got a few advantages. I mean, Pep has been there before. Gundogan has been there before. None of these other players have well, certainly got through a semi-final of Champions League. There's probably a couple who got knocked out to Real Madrid a couple of years ago in a semi-final. PSG they did it. They know what it takes to get over the line in a semi-final. Poch has been to a final before. He'll be scorned, you know, and wanting to sort of get over the loss to Liverpool. Just as the PSG players, the majority, are going to want to get over last year's loss. Again, I think that's another advantage. City haven't got through a semi-final of a Champions League. We've not been there and done it before. So it's mindset. It's a lot of psychology involved, and no doubt things will be to the minuscule of detail in prep for Pep on this. But it's just what happens on the night, I suppose. And look at VAR, how influential that was on the Bellingham goal in the first leg. I was amazed, and it's about time we've had a bit of luck with VAR in the Champions League after the Spurs incidents a couple of years ago. But it's, you know, they're big factors. You know, that was a totally legitimate goal, and how that didn't stand, I do not know. But
for me,
anything can happen.
For me, it should have been a goal because, you know, it's same as with you know, Cavani's goal with midfielder Scott McTominay. McTominay, you know, when it's, you know, it's become absurd. But my only thing on that goal was, you know, he got the ball fair and square. His leg wasn't too high, but his studs were showing. That would be the only factor of it being, you know, disallowed. But if you can't go for the ball these days on even an 80-20 basis, then it's ridiculous. And VAR is it's killing the game. Obviously, that's another conversation that, you know, we can have on we've already had and we will have on numerous other occasions. But yeah, they had some good players, Bellingham and Sancho and Haaland. So they overcome that. And I don't see, you know, I'm with both of you on the Neymar situation. Overrated for me in the past. Yeah, he had a good game, but for the pedestal that he's been put on, I can't see how. You know, and yeah, okay, and hopefully for City, he's done it in that one game against Bayern Munich, and that's it for another 2 years, because you don't see it happening very often. You see him doing these flicks over the top of people and his nutmegs and stuff, and he scores a few goals in the French league, which, not being funny, most people could do. But he's done it against Munich, so hopefully he's had his quota, you know, for the season.
And although he played really well in that second leg against Munich, he didn't score.
No, exactly.
I mean, he hit the post right. I just think the thing is with City is that, particularly with De Bruyne, they've got their way of playing, and it's like sort of, this is the way we play, and once we settle, we'll just keep coming at you. We'll zip the ball around between ourselves until we get into a position where we can put the killer passing, and then we'll get the killer passing and we'll score. And that's the way they play. I just wonder against PSG whether they will give more respect to the opposition, in the sense that whether they'll do anything special to try and stop Mbappe, whether they'll sort of do more of a sort of man marking job on Mbappe, which you wouldn't normally associate with City, because they sort of say, look, you know, it's the Brian Clough thing. You know, they've got much more to worry about from us than we've got to worry about from them. But I wonder whether Pep will look at that and say, you know, this is a very, very special player. If we keep him quiet, then we haven't got a lot to worry about when we go up. You know, their central midfield player was in the Villa side that went down. You know, Ghana. So there's, you know, so there's I think if they can keep Mbappe quiet, and you know, even if that means doing something that they don't usually do, and sort of putting somebody on him, you know, sort of saying just keep that, you know, somebody fast and say keep that bloke quiet, you know, and then we can play our own game then moving forward.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that. We did the exact thing you're talking about. We changed our tactics for Leon, I think it was. Or no, I forget who we got knocked out. There's been so many knockouts with us in the Champions League. But Pep went 5 at the back against a team that was a counter-attacking team. We should have gone for the juggler. We got knocked out last year. And
that was Leon last year, wasn't it?
Leon, it was, yeah. And I was worried he was going to change things, but he came out openly and said, no, we need to go to Dortmund and score goals. And thankfully we did. I think the only one for me who probably could do a job on Mbappe, tucking into sort of the inside right position there, would be Kyle Walker for pace. But I mean, he's given away so many blinking penalties and things like that. And you just expect Pochettino go, do you know what? If you do a man-marking job with Kyle Walker, we're licking our lips because he's just going to be getting tripped up left, right and centre. Yeah. So it's a big call. Fernandinho potentially would be another one, but I don't think he's got the legs. Rodri, likewise, you know, great holding midfielders. But they can't keep up with the kid. You know, he's lightning. That he made that Pavard, who's an international fullback for Munich, is his fellow Frenchman. He made him look, you know, bang average, and was just the drop of the shoulders, and you know, and he was gone. So it's a big opportunity for Kyle Walker to really put a marker down. You know, you think of times when Ashley Cole marked Ronaldo. You know, that was a big thing in the press when England played Portugal years ago. And I've said, you know, this is the equivalent for Kyle Walker. This is your Ronaldo big stage moment against Mbappe potentially.
What they need is what did Big Ron Atkinson used to call it? Was it a Rekna? Early doors, so like, you know,
a red card,
a dead leg in the thigh or something like that. Give him I think he used to call it a Rekna. You get to go out there and give him a Rekna, and then you can, that'll keep him quiet. I think Roy Keane used to be a master at that as well, didn't they?
Gone are those days where you're going to have the first ones for free with the ref. I don't think that would just be typical, and I think it would spoil the occasion. If there'll be drama, I don't doubt. It's classic. It's typical City as the fans. We are, you know, we're known as typical City, where we throw things away, you know, when there's literally open goal sometimes. But I don't know. I'll probably have a couple of sleepless nights thinking about it, you know, in the build-up. But it is what it is. I'm just glad to get out of and get to the semi-finals, because obviously that's been a challenge in the last 4 years, fallen so many times. And when you'd have thought perhaps now's our year. So yeah, it is what it is.
It doesn't look like you're going to throw it away at Villa Park tonight, Ryan, and that'd put you 11 points clear. About 5 minutes left.
Yeah, I might loosen up then and start smiling, thinking about we've won the league, Steve. I won't be so pessimistic.
As I say, you got Spurs on the 25th in the final, and then PSG 3 days later. I don't know what the fixtures would be for PSG, and where they are in their standings, but surely and then you've got Palace then 4 days later in the league again.
That's the big one. The Palace game's a big one there.
You're going to have to obviously, but surely there you're looking at, you're 11 points clear. You just literally put out 11 different players against Palace because you need to be resting players for more than 3 days. There's a 3-day gap with, you've got 25th, 28th, 1st and 4th. So 3 days between, and I don't care how fit you are or how... how professional you are. A 3-day gap between a final and a semi-final, you can't do. You've got to, and then 8 days later, you've got the other leg.
Yeah, I think. You look, Stones is potentially. I almost hope he's suspended for the weekend now, so he gets rested. You're probably looking at perhaps he brings Ake in for the semi-final. Ake and Laporte start at centre half, so you can rest Diaz for the big one against against PSG. Don't get me wrong, we're going for the 4th year running, I believe now, with the League Cup. Or was it 3rd? Forget. There's been so much, we've literally kept.
Oh, they've won so many titles.
No, but it's a case. Don't get me wrong, I'd love to win the cup. I'd be disappointed to lose. But if Pep does a Pep sort of thing and says, you know what, I'm literally going to ring the changes because we've got PSG, then he's doing it for the right reasons. I wouldn't mind betting he does that. And But then I back some of the players who are coming in have got enough to do it against Spurs. I don't think Spurs are, they got some great names going forward. They're a bit shaky at the back.
He got a bit of criticism for his team selection against Chelsea, though, didn't he? So he probably might have that in. He might have that in mind for a final, albeit the League Cup.
Yeah,
but then he just needs to explain himself, doesn't he? You come out in the in your match day program or in your interview. It's a run up to the League Cup final, so you have interviews on your Thursday and Friday, and you bring it in straight away. We've got Champions League semi-final in 3 days' time against what potentially one of the best teams in the tournament. They're in the semi-final, and what do you want? Do you want to win the Carabao Cup final as a City fan, or do you want to get to the Champions League final? And that's the way to placate it. That's the easiest thing in the world to do. You put it out in your write-ups. Now with a week to go, and at the end of the day, the people that they're bringing in, Gundogan hasn't played a lot. You've got bit part players who, when they come in, they take over from the Fodens and the De Bruynes. They score their 2 or 3 goals in 2 games, and then they disappear for 2 or 3 weeks. So and it's a final. So all those guys, they know they're not going to be playing in the Champions League semi-final and final, but at least they've got the carrot of play well tonight and we may be on the bench. Play well tonight and we'll definitely be playing against Palace. And then 3 days after the semi-final, the second leg, they can be playing against Chelsea. So there's lots of carrots there to be dangled and contracts to stay for next season.
Yeah, and we're in that luxury. You said earlier, we've got potentially 2 11s, all being well, So that team that he'll put out, you got choice of left back. You go Zinchenko or Mendy for a start. You've got choice of centre half, albeit without Stones now, but you've got choices. Same at right back, same in midfield, perhaps not so much up front, which, once the league's run, right, bring Delap in, who's an unreal talent in the sort of development squad. Bring him in and give him his first sort of regular football at the Premier League level. Throw him in, chuck him on the bench, give him an opportunity. Those are the luxuries, I suppose, that he's got. He's playing, he's another one playing Football Manager, living the dream really with his selection opportunities.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I say it's a good run up, but it's a good position to be in, being able to swap and change your players around. Lots of other teams, as you say, PSG. I don't know what their fixture situation is like, but if they were in a final 3 days before the semi, they wouldn't be able to do that. No. They'd have a terrible second string out because some of their positions in their first team that play against City, they how many players will get in the City's team from Paris Saint-Germain? The 2 strikers, because City haven't got good strikers. They haven't got strikers. That's really the only 2 that you would put in there for sure. So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. But thanks for coming on, lads. Again, it's all right. It's been a pleasure to talk about get some perspective on the Super League and the next few weeks running. So predictions then for the Tottenham game.
City in extra time.
Extra time. Okay. And what do you reckon?
2-1 City, normal time.
Is that you taking into the factor that they might be putting on the second side?
Yeah, I still think. I think if Kane's not playing, which it looks like he won't be, I think they've got no manager. Kane's not playing. Their form has been indifferent. I just think, and I think it goes back to the point that you've just made. Really, I think that those City players who come in, they don't often get a chance, and they'll be really hungry. And they're not bad players, are they? So I just think. I think just like they luckily beat Villa in the final last year, I think it will be the same again.
Mart, what do you think?
I was going to say 2-1 City within the 90 minutes, but Andy said that, so I'm going to use my bias and say I'm going to be biased and say 2-0 City, mainly to be anti-Tottenham. But yeah, I think it does depend if Kane is fit or not. I think he's rolled his ankle again, hasn't he? Like we said before, so he's had ankle problems for God knows how long now. So if it's a recurring injury, I guess they might have that new manager bounce for Ryan Mason, but it's a case of what's his managerial experience before, what's he going to be able to do. But you know, it could be a situation where he's able to sort of hype his team up for a sort of 1-game shootout to win a bit of silverware. So you've got that angle as well. I mean, Bale looked really sharp, which is good from a Welsh perspective going into the Euros. He seems to be finding the net again. His goal, who were they playing? Southampton, really tightly finished.
Yeah.
But I'd still say City have got enough, even with the second stringers, to probably get it done. So,
yeah, I think.
How about you, Steve?
I agree. They don't. Spurs' only shot really is the Son and Bale. Bale's got a point to prove now that Mourinho's left. He gave him a run of 3 or 4 games and he pretty much scored in every game, and then he's out and he's a bit part player again, even though he's been paid loads of money to come in on loan from Madrid. So I think he's got a point to prove. Son's back from injury and he's firing again. I know it's obviously a penalty, but he's back on form. That's their only hope. But unless they get a supply from midfield, where City's midfield, they're just going to supplicate them. I can only see one. I don't know what the score will be, but I can only see one result. And I reckon it would be a normal time. They're going to want to get the job done. Pep doesn't want extra time, even with the second string side, because they'll be the same side that is going to be playing against Palace. 7 days later. He doesn't want injuries. He doesn't want fatigue. Coming up to the end of the season. So I think they should win quite comfortably. They say managerless, Kane-less. It's that's my.
I think Guardiola have learned from what Chelsea did in the semi-final. I think he'll put out a stronger side. If not necessarily a full strength side, I think he'll put out a stronger side. And I think I could see Tottenham going ahead, and then City getting on top of them. And once they get the passing game going, I think I could see them coming back and winning.
Bit like tonight, then.
Bit like tonight, yeah. I think it's that classic thing where we scored too early.
You could have scored any earlier.
No, exactly. We scored too early and made them angry. If we'd left it another hour, I think
If you'd left it another 88 minutes, you might have been in with the chance. Brilliant. Okay, you've been listening to Randolph and Martin's Friday Night Sports Talk. We've had Andy the Villa fan and Ryan the City fan. Thanks for coming on, lads. And,
no problem, mate. Anytime.
We'll get you back on soon. Thanks again, Mart, for your Arsenal input and good talk about the Super League. I'm sure there'll be more discussions coming up in the near future about that. And we'll speak to you all soon.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, thanks, guys.
Cheers, guys. Take care.